Welcome back to Caroline Effect, where we help you build stronger character, sharper judgment, and the confidence to lead your life with purpose. Most men don't lose the woman they love because another man was better. They lose her because, piece by piece, they gave away the qualities that once made them attractive. If you don't recognize these silent mistakes, you'll keep repeating them without ever knowing why respect disappears. Today, you're about to discover the 10 habits that quietly destroy a man's value and how to avoid every one of them. Here's a reality that most men never hear until it's too late. A woman usually doesn't lose interest because you were distant, unavailable, or emotionally guarded. More often, she starts pulling away because you gave her access to parts of your life she hadn't earned. You offered unlimited trust, endless forgiveness, constant effort, and built your future around her before she had truly shown she deserved that place. When you give without healthy limits, the imbalance appears long before you notice it. A woman's attraction rarely disappears without a reason. It often changes when she realizes you've become more focused on keeping her than on respecting yourself. If you've ever wondered why her affection slowly faded, why the respect disappeared, or why she suddenly became emotionally distant, there's usually a pattern behind it. You crossed boundaries you didn't even know were important. In this video, I'm going to share 10 things a man should never do for a woman if he wants to protect his confidence, self-respect, and value. I've seen this happen to countless intelligent, hard-working, and genuine men who unknowingly damage their relationships because nobody ever taught them how healthy boundaries actually work. Women respond to confidence, consistency, and clear standards. When those disappear, the relationship almost always follows the same downward path. Everything I'm sharing comes from observing these patterns repeatedly and helping men rebuild their confidence and completely change the way they approach relationships. If you're ready to see things differently, subscribe to Caroline Effect, leave a like, and comment, "I'm ready to lead my life again." Sometimes saying those words is the first step toward believing them. Let's begin with the first mistake that quietly weakens a man's position. Never forgive repeated cheating. Infidelity is not a misunderstanding or a simple mistake. It is a choice. Every man needs to understand that. When someone crosses that line, they made a conscious decision. If you immediately forgive them and hope love alone will repair everything, you unintentionally communicate something far more important than your words ever could. You show that your boundaries can be negotiated and that your self-respect is flexible. Many men believe that forgiveness automatically proves strength. In reality, what often earns respect is having standards you refuse to abandon. A woman notices the limits you enforce far more than the compliments you give. If she realizes you'll stay after repeated betrayal, she begins to see your boundaries as something that can be tested without lasting consequences. She may apologize sincerely, she may cry, promise change, and tell you it will never happen again. But emotional apologies do not erase the new dynamic that has formed. She now knows that enough emotion can persuade you to overlook actions that once seemed unforgivable. The deepest damage isn't only the betrayal itself, it's what happens after you accept repeated disrespect. Remaining in that situation doesn't communicate love, it communicates that you're willing to abandon yourself in order to avoid losing someone else. Strong boundaries don't require shouting, revenge, or anger. They require calm certainty. You decide what your standards are, and when those standards are violated, you act accordingly. A man who quietly protects his dignity carries far more strength than one who constantly sacrifices it in the hope of being loved. The truth is simple. Respect grows around firm limits, not endless tolerance. Another mistake is asking for permission to live your own life. There is a healthy difference between informing your partner about your decisions and asking for approval before making them. Unfortunately, many men confuse the two. The moment you begin treating her like the person who must approve every choice you make, the balance of the relationship changes. Sharing your plans shows respect. Asking whether you're allowed to follow your own path gives away your independence. Whether it's accepting a career opportunity, planning a trip, meeting friends, or pursuing a personal goal, constantly waiting for permission slowly positions you beneath your partner instead of beside her. Even small moments matter. Imagine someone asks you a direct question, but before answering, you automatically look at her to respond for you. Over time, those habits quietly reshape how you're viewed. Instead of appearing confident and decisive, you begin to look dependent. A healthy relationship isn't built on surrendering your ability to lead your own life. Make your decisions with confidence, then communicate them openly. Transparency builds trust. Seeking constant approval weakens confidence. When a man knows where he's going and isn't afraid to make responsible decisions, he creates emotional stability. When he hesitates at every step, someone else naturally takes control of the direction. Never spend yourself into financial hardship trying to earn admiration. Many men have made the mistake of believing expensive dinners, luxury gifts, or impressive experiences will create lasting attraction. But if money becomes your main way of gaining attention, you're teaching someone to appreciate the lifestyle instead of appreciating you. Trying to impress someone through constant spending often leads to emotional exhaustion and financial stress. Real connection isn't measured by how much you spend. It's measured by who you are when the money, gifts, and grand gestures are removed. A woman who values you only when you're providing expensive experiences isn't responding to your character. She's responding to the benefits surrounding you. That's a dangerous foundation for any relationship. Many men convince themselves that the more they give financially, the more loyalty they will receive in return. But genuine attraction doesn't grow because of excessive spending. What creates lasting respect is stability, confidence, and a man who has direction. Flashy gestures may create excitement for a moment, but they rarely build a strong foundation. When a woman notices that you're constantly stretching your finances, relying on credit, borrowing money, or living far beyond what you can comfortably afford just to impress her, she isn't necessarily impressed by your sacrifice. Instead, she may begin questioning your decision-making. If a man can't manage his own life responsibly, she naturally wonders how he could build a secure future with someone else. Once that doubt appears, it's difficult to erase. There is another problem with trying to buy affection. Over time, you teach her to connect your value with what you provide instead of who you are. Every date becomes bigger, every gift more expensive, every experience more extravagant. The moment you can no longer maintain that pace, disappointment replaces excitement. Without realizing it, you've created expectations that were never sustainable. A wise man protects his finances just as carefully as he protects his time, his peace, and his personal standards. He invests in his own future first, his education, his health, his skills, his business, and the life he is building. A woman who genuinely respects you will appreciate that discipline. But if her admiration depends only on what your wallet can provide, then her interest is standing on unstable ground. The reality is simple. If spending large amounts of money is the only reason someone notices you, then they weren't truly choosing you. They were responding to what you could buy, and money alone never creates lasting connection. Another mistake is allowing a woman to slowly take control of every part of your life. Control rarely arrives in obvious ways. It usually begins with small requests that seem harmless. A question about where you're going, a request to check your phone, an opinion about how you should spend your time or money. One small compromise leads to another until, before you realize it, you're no longer making your own decisions, you're simply asking for approval. This often happens because of insecurity, or because she senses that no one is confidently leading the relationship. If you constantly allow her to monitor your location, question every decision, review your messages, or supervise your daily life, you're strengthening a pattern that slowly destroys attraction. The truth is, the more someone feels they must manage you, the harder it becomes for them to admire you. Constant control replaces trust, and trust is one of the strongest foundations of respect. The biggest danger is how gradually it changes you. You stop acting naturally. You second-guess your own choices. You avoid making simple decisions because you're worried about creating conflict. Instead of leading your own life, you begin living cautiously, always trying to avoid criticism. A confident man doesn't respond with anger or unnecessary arguments. He simply establishes healthy boundaries. He decides what privacy means, what openness means, and what respectful behavior looks like. Then he communicates those expectations calmly and confidently, without feeling guilty for having them. Deep down, very few women truly want complete control over a man. They are far more attracted to someone who knows his own direction, makes thoughtful decisions, and remains steady regardless of whether others approve. The fifth mistake is lying just to protect her feelings. Most people can sense the difference between honesty and empty reassurance. The moment you begin saying things you don't actually believe simply to avoid upsetting her, trust slowly starts to disappear, and once trust is weakened, your words lose their value. Many men avoid honesty because they're afraid of conflict. They worry about hurting her feelings, creating tension, or damaging the relationship. But respectful honesty doesn't destroy attraction. Fear of telling the truth often does. Whether it's complimenting something you don't genuinely like, or staying silent about behaviors that are hurting the relationship, she often recognizes the difference. Instead of seeing kindness, she may see hesitation and uncertainty. Women are usually very sensitive to inconsistency. If you praise something you clearly don't believe, she notices. If unhealthy habits continue and you pretend everything is fine, she notices. If you constantly agree with everything simply to keep the peace, she notices that too. Eventually, she begins questioning whether your words reflect reality or simply your desire to avoid disagreement. Being truthful doesn't mean becoming harsh or insensitive. It means having enough confidence to speak honestly while remaining respectful. You can explain that something isn't working without becoming angry, insulting, or raising your voice. Calm honesty builds trust far more effectively than comfortable lies ever will. You should be able to point out behaviors that are hurting both of you, whether it's poor discipline, disrespect, or unhealthy habits, and do it from a place of honesty rather than criticism. A man who speaks the truth with calm confidence becomes someone a woman can rely on. A man who constantly hides behind comforting lies eventually becomes someone she stops taking seriously. She may not enjoy hearing difficult truths in the moment, but over time she develops respect for the man who stays honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Real strength isn't pretending everything is fine to avoid conflict. It's refusing to ignore reality just to make someone feel better for a few minutes. A man who cannot be manipulated because he stands firmly in the truth naturally earns respect. Another mistake is treating every girls' night out as if boundaries never matter. There's nothing wrong with a woman having her own friends and enjoying an independent social life. Healthy relationships leave room for both people to have lives outside of each other. But problems begin when a man convinces himself that every environment has no influence on behavior. That's simply not how people work. The people we spend time around shape our mindset more than we often realize. If a woman regularly spends her evenings in social circles focused on attention, partying, or living without accountability, those influences can gradually affect the relationship. It doesn't automatically mean she'll betray your trust, but ignoring the impacts of environment is unrealistic. Group dynamics are powerful. Even someone who is normally grounded can slowly adopt the attitudes and habits of the people surrounding them. When late nights, constant validation, and impulsive lifestyles become normal within that group, those values can quietly follow her back into the relationship. This isn't about controlling her choices. It's about recognizing that every environment encourages certain behaviors. If nights out become frequent, unpredictable, or centered around people who openly disrespect commitment, it's reasonable for both partners to discuss how those situations affect the relationship. Healthy couples protect what they're building together. That means having honest conversations about what supports the relationship and what slowly pulls it apart. Independence and commitment can absolutely exist together, but both require responsibility. A man with clear standards creates stability. A man with no standards leaves room for confusion. When both people respect agreed boundaries, trust grows stronger. But if every reasonable boundary is viewed as unacceptable, then what is being protected may not be the relationship at all, but unlimited freedom without accountability. The next mistake is making a woman your entire purpose. Few things weaken a man faster than abandoning his own goals after entering a relationship. It happens all the time. He puts his dreams on hold, delays opportunities, and slowly rearranges his life until everything revolves around one person. At first, that level of attention may seem flattering, but over time, attraction often fades when she realizes that your entire identity depends on the relationship. When your purpose disappears, emotional dependence usually takes its place. A man without direction becomes reactive instead of intentional. His mood depends on hers, his schedule follows hers, his decisions revolve around keeping her happy, while his own ambitions quietly disappear. Purpose gives a man structure. It's the foundation that supports every other part of his life. When you give that up for love, you unintentionally communicate that your direction can be abandoned whenever emotions become strong. Eventually, she'll notice the difference. The ambition that once inspired her begins fading. The confidence that came from building your own future slowly disappears. Instead of feeling secure beside a driven man, she may begin feeling responsible for filling the emptiness left behind. The strongest relationships are built when two complete people choose to walk together. Your mission should never compete with your relationship, it should strengthen it. Build a life that someone wants to become part of, not a life that exists only because of someone else. Women are often drawn to men who remain committed to something meaningful beyond the relationship itself. When you stay focused on your purpose, you become more confident, more grounded, and ultimately more attractive. Another mistake is constantly abandoning important commitments for her. Long before someone measures how deeply you care, they notice whether your words and actions are consistent. Nothing weakens your credibility faster than repeatedly dropping your responsibilities because she wants your attention in that moment. This doesn't apply to genuine emergencies where priorities naturally change. It refers to regularly cancelling business meetings, skipping important work, ignoring family obligations, or walking away from commitments simply because she's feeling lonely, bored, or wants immediate attention. A dependable man honours the promises he makes. He understands that keeping his commitments isn't a sign that he cares less about his relationship, it's proof that he has integrity. The people who respect themselves also respect their responsibilities, and that consistency is one of the strongest qualities a man can bring into any relationship. The moment you repeatedly drop everything for her, you send a message without saying a word. You show that your own life can easily be pushed aside. Women notice how a man handles his responsibilities. They pay attention to whether he keeps his promises, respects his schedule, and follows through on his commitments. Those habits communicate reliability, discipline, and confidence. But if she sees that you instantly abandon your plans whenever she's upset or wants your attention, she won't necessarily view it as proof of love. More often, she'll see a man whose priorities shift too easily. Instead of appearing dependable, you begin to look like someone without structure. Over time, you stop being her partner and become the person responsible for constantly managing her emotions. That's not healthy love. It's losing yourself. Eventually, you'll feel frustrated over sacrifices she never actually asked you to make, while she may lose respect for the version of you that gave everything away. The relationship slowly turns into a cycle where you give more and receive less until you barely recognize yourself. A grounded man doesn't ignore his relationship, but he also doesn't neglect his responsibilities. He plans wisely, communicates clearly, and honors the commitments he has already made. A relationship becomes part of his life, not the replacement for it. If your own word means little to you, it will eventually mean little to everyone else. Another mistake is pretending to enjoy everything she enjoys. Many men believe the key to compatibility is sharing every interest she has. At first, it may seem thoughtful and supportive, but over time it can erase the very qualities that made you attractive in the first place. A woman should absolutely have passions that excite her. Whether it's a hobby, a creative interest, or a favourite activity, those things are part of who she is. But they don't all have to become yours. If you constantly force yourself to like everything she likes simply to stay close to her, you slowly lose your own identity. Instead of bringing something unique into the relationship, you become a reflection of her. While she may initially appreciate your enthusiasm, attraction often fades when there's no longer any contrast between your worlds. Your own interests matter because they remind her that your life has purpose beyond the relationship. Your hobbies, ambitions, and personal goals make you someone she continues to admire and remain curious about. They show that your identity doesn't depend on constant approval. Supporting her passions is healthy. Pretending they are all your passions is not. You can encourage what she loves while still protecting what makes you different. The strongest relationships are built by two complete individuals, not by one person disappearing into the other. The final lesson is one of the biggest decisions a man can ever face. Never make a life-changing legal commitment when you're uncertain about something as important as fatherhood. Some choices can be corrected later, others can shape the rest of your life with a single signature. That's why decisions involving legal responsibility should always be made with complete clarity, never under emotional pressure. Many men feel pressured into acting quickly because emotions are running high, family members are present, or they fear looking uncaring if they ask difficult questions. But a few uncomfortable minutes are far easier than carrying years of responsibility based on uncertainty. Seeking certainty isn't an act of distrust, it's an act of responsibility. Unfortunately, many men are taught that asking questions makes them insensitive or disloyal. That belief can push them into making permanent decisions simply to avoid judgment. The consequences can be enormous. Legal, financial, emotional, and personal responsibilities can last for decades. If the truth comes out later, reversing those decisions is often far more difficult than making the right choice in the beginning. This isn't about assuming the worst about anyone. It's about protecting your future through wisdom rather than emotion. A responsible man confirms the facts before making irreversible commitments. He doesn't allow guilt, pressure, or fear of criticism to replace clear judgment. Real commitment should always stand on truth. Major responsibilities deserve certainty, not assumptions, when the decision will shape the rest of your life. Taking the time to verify the facts isn't weakness, it's maturity. When you step back and look at all 10 lessons together, they point to one simple pattern. A man rarely loses his strength because someone else takes it away. He loses it when he slowly abandons the values, discipline, and self-respect that made him strong to begin with. Whether it's accepting repeated disrespect, avoiding honest conversations, spending beyond your means to impress someone, giving up your purpose, or neglecting your own responsibilities, each choice slowly pulls you further away from yourself. Healthy relationships aren't built on self-sacrifice without limits. They are built on mutual respect, personal responsibility, clear boundaries, and strong character. When those qualities disappear, respect often disappears with them. These lessons aren't about controlling another person, they're about protecting your own integrity, peace of mind, and future. Every standard you uphold and every boundary you maintain shapes not only your life, but also the quality of the relationships you build. Real strength doesn't need loud words or controlling behavior. It's shown through quiet consistency. It's knowing your values, standing by them, and refusing to abandon who you are simply to keep someone close. Before you leave, take a moment to think about one habit you've been allowing that no longer serves you. Decide today to change it, not with dramatic promises, but with steady action. The strongest decisions are often the quietest ones. When you begin protecting your standards, you don't lose the right people. You simply remove the chaos that never belonged in your life. The right woman won't ask you to become less of yourself. She'll respect the man who knows exactly who he is. Real strength isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. Protect your values, stand by your standards, and never lose your identity for the sake of approval. If this message resonated with you, like, subscribe to Caroline Effect, and share in the comments which lesson changed your perspective the most.